Hello there, and today we'll be reacting to the B-17 that flew without a cockpit by FlakAlley. This was suggested to me by Scar3878, and his granddad was actually on this plane, and it's his memorial. I believe it's Friday the 24th of October. So I love World War II history, and I think this is going to be an amazing story. There's endless amounts of World War II amazing stories, so hopefully I get to do a whole bunch of these in the future.
It was the 14th of July, 1944. A thunderous evening. Cruising at 25,000 feet, 24-year-old first lieutenant.
And it was really like people forget, like, they're flying at like 24,000 feet. It was freezing on these planes. Like, there's not heating. They've barely got the fuel to go there and back because like fuel was so limited. So it's absolutely frozen on these planes.
Lieutenant Ewald Swanson of the 483rd Bomb Group was pilot of a B-17G Flying Fortress, nicknamed Mizpah, its tail number 4232109. Their mission was to strike at the very heart of the Nazi stronghold in Budapest, Hungary. The formation consisted of 60 flying fortresses, and as they entered Hungary...
These flying fortresses, they're just impossibly big. It's one of those things where you kind of look at planes and you're like, how does that even stay in the air? It's crazy.
By relentless curtains of thick flak.
Yeah.
Explosions erupted all around Mizpah, shredding the tail section and...
I've not actually mentioned this before. I think it's my great uncle. I've always known him as Uncle Jack. He was in the SAS, the original SAS when it was like formed, and he was in Africa at the time. So he was fighting against like Rommel and stuff like that. So my family has quite a lot of history of this. My dad was actually born in April 1945. So my dad is now 80 years old. My dad had me when he was quite old. So like my dad was on rations for like the first 10 years of his life. Just think about that. Crazy.
Punching holes into the battle-worn wings. Nonetheless, the B-17 formation presses through the initial flag bombardment and heads inbound towards their main
insane
target, the
bravery.
Railroad yards. This was one of the most heavily defended and strategically vital targets of the late war. Critical for the move. And
I don't think it's not like in France where we made use of like resistance fighters. I don't think in like Hungary and stuff like that there was anything like that. So the only way to get to these was by doing these long-range bombing runs. Insanity. Because not only do they have to get through flak and hit the target, which is like this impossible task to begin with, they've then got to avoid the other, the enemy pilots scrambling and trying to shoot them down in fighter planes. Like, this is scary stuff.
Equipment and oil, keeping the German war machine alive. Now, just seconds away from the target, Bombardier 2nd Lieutenant Kenneth Dudley lines up the Sperry bomb site and successfully releases their bombs. All of a sudden, chaos erupts. A Flak 88 round lands square on the nose.
Oh my god! It lands square in.
The nose explodes, vaporizing the Bombardier and the navigator, whilst covering the front of the fortress in blood. The nose peels.
Oh my god, look at it. It's like it's flown into like a wall. That's mental.
Off above the aircraft, and shrapnel from the cockpit ricochets throughout the cabin, piercing wing gunner Sergeant Wesley Tucker in the chest. The inside temperature plummets to a freezing -30 degrees.
And it was already cold in that plane.
Due to the extreme damage, the center of gravity shifts to the tail, causing the fortress to pitch up into a vertical. They were mere seconds away from stalling out and entering a death spiral. Astonishingly, First Lieutenant Ewald Swanson, despite no longer having a cockpit, regains control of the...
How? Surely there's no controls left. I mean, I don't really know how these planes work. I'm more of a tank guy. But, like, how? There's not going to be, like, secondary controls unless, like, there's just, like, the bare minimum he's got left.
B-17 and re-enters the formation. The crew of a nearby...
The entire front of the plane destroyed, and this guy somehow regains control of the plane. Not only does he regain control of the plane, he rejoins formation. Greatest generation. It's so true.
B-17, nicknamed Yvonne, couldn't believe what they were seeing.
Yeah, imagine looking out of your cockpit to see another plane literally like next to you, and the whole front of the plane is missing, and it's still flying?
Blood-soaked B-17, without a nose, pulls up alongside them in one of the most haunting sights of the war.
Yeah.
Mizpah was strangely flying as if nothing had happened. What was happening inside the B-17 was even more impressive. Since there was no cockpit or control column left to maneuver the aircraft, under the screaming command of pilot Swanson, the crew had begun to fly the aircraft by pulling the exposed control cables.
No! Oh my god! This is insanity. That I've lost for words. They just had a level of grit and determination that we've lost. You know, like, these are incredible men. You know, just this is what makes me so proud. Do you know what I mean?
By hand. Despite having lost a significant part of the aircraft, this flying fortress and its injured crew refused to go down.
I suppose it makes sense because the cockpit is where all the things terminate, but it's not where they originate from. So you can still control the plane. Oh my god, I'd never considered this. So you can still control the plane. Obviously, you'll definitely. I can't imagine trying to land this thing. You know, like, let's see how that goes.
A symbol of unwavering courage and indomitable machine spirit. However, over 200 Flak 88 guns still had their sights set on formation. Suddenly, another explosion rattles the B-17. A flak barrage destroys their number 2 engine as the fortress begins to lose power and airspeed. With the nose blown off and
it'll lose power, it'll lose airspeed, but it'll start using more fuel as well.
An engine gone. Mizpah and her crew, through sheer determination and will, kept the aircraft airborne. However, the effects of drag from all the damage received was increasing by the second.
Which again, we use more and more fuel. So, like, how do they make it home?
Fallen far behind the formation by now.
And so now they're also an easy target as well.
In 10 minutes, the crew battles the control cables to get as far away from the hornet's nest as possible. Now, over Dunavex, Hungary, pilot Ewald Swanson informs his crew to immediately bail out whilst he held it steady. 7 crew members successfully bail out of the aircraft. Swanson could no longer tame the crippled fortress on his own. Immediately,
whoa! This is what I mean by greatest generation.
The B-17 pitches up, trapping Swanson inside the fuselage.
Oh no!
He grabs the parachute and keeps it close to him, waiting for the B-17 to stall out.
Oh, he waits for it to stall out, and then he's gonna jump out of the plane. Oh my god!
As the fortress comes to a standstill, Swanson takes the opportunity to jump out of the front.
Jumps out of the front. Yeah, because he'd probably, if it's so destroyed, he'd probably like, because it's just gonna be like shredded metal. Maybe the whole front of, like, maybe it is like an actual gap and he got sheared off. Maybe he could like pull himself through and like Mission Impossible jump himself away from the plane. That's incredible.
Just as he does, his chute catches the torn metal of the cockpit, ripping through the fabric with brutal force. This was a blessing in disguise, however, as if the fabric hadn't torn, he would have gone down with the ship, pinned by
because it would have dragged him all the way down.
Swanson is violently flung back, narrowly missing the tail section of the B-17. The young pilot momentarily passes out, whilst
just from the force that he would have been like catapulted back. It would have been worse than what like astronauts feel. He would have like blacked out and then like guys, he would have blacked out and then found himself like a couple 100 miles from his ship, like free falling through the air at like 20-odd thousand feet.
Falling out the sky from 20,000 feet.
Yeah. Oh my god.
When he opened his eyes, he was seconds away from hitting the ground.
Jeez.
First Lieutenant Ewald Swanson immediately opens his parachute, but notices that it had sustained significant damage.
Yeah, it's like shredded.
It was not slowing him down enough for a safe landing. The landing was going to be brutal, one that he was unlikely to walk away from or even survive.
And he's in enemy territory as well.
By sheer luck, on the way down, he spots what he believed to be an enemy POW camp in the middle.
No. Does he parachute inside the prison?
A dense forest. Swanson positions himself on top of the trees by the camp, hoping it would break his fall. Several seconds later, he crashes into the dense treetop. First Lieutenant Swanson suffers a broken left leg alongside
Yeah.
deep tissue cuts from the tree branches.
Honestly, that's not too bad. I thought he'd be like breaking his back or something like that. If you remember Bear Grylls, the survival guy, he was part of the Territorial Army in England, which is like the reserve army, and he was in the SAS, and he jumped out of a plane and he broke his back through like a failed parachute deployment. He's fine now, but those things are brutal.
Against all odds, he survives the landing. The German medics of the POW camp quickly spot Swanson's body in the brush and recover him. They administer life-saving first aid to the young pilot,
Nice.
who has at this point stared death in the face and kept going.
I'm surprised he's still conscious. It's like literally an action movie.
In fact, to his amazement, he finds out that the entire crew of his B-17 had survived. His crew were captured nearby, only to meet up at the same camp their pilot.
Yeah, because they all bailed out of enemy territory, so they're all like roughly in the same spot. But for them to all end for the same camp, that's really good for morale.
Somehow ended up at a happy accident, as they put it. The crew would endure 9 long months through the harsh cold winter.
And they held an Olympics at the POW camp.
At the POW camp. On the 30th of April 1945, US troops would liberate the crew of Mizpah. The war for these young men.
I was kind of hoping the plane would make it back and land, but like it must have been in incredible shape just to see like the entire front sheared off.
Had finally come to an end. The 8 survivors would return home to the USA that night. Ewald Swanson's bravery that day would earn him the prestigious rank of Lieutenant Colonel before his retirement from the United States Air Force.
Wonderful.
After the war, he returned to a quieter life, marrying his beloved Catherine Swanson and raising a son together at Michigan, USA. Yet, it was the bond with his B-17 crewmates that remained closest to his heart.
Yeah, and I feel this is something we've kind of moved away from in society, sadly, where like the people misunderstand masculinity. It's about brotherhood, and we've kind of lost that, and you see it so much in these stories of like the most important person is the guy next to you, and I feel we've moved away from that, and we've lost a lot as a result. These were like real heroes.
In the decades that followed, they would often reunite, old warriors with weathered hands.
And you see that throughout lots and lots of different squads and companies. They meet until there's no one left to meet anymore.
And bright eyes, sharing stories of impossible missions and the unbreakable brotherhood they forged when they were barely more than kids.
Yeah.
Swanson would pass
He was probably younger than me.
away peacefully on the 28th of February 2009 at the age of 89. Remembered not only as a war hero, but as the only known pilot to have ever flown an aircraft without a cockpit. Only Mizpah and the men who dared to ride her into hell and back could ever truly understand what that meant.
Yeah, so it's a shame that Mizpah got lost then, because it obviously they had to abandon it, and then so the remains of the crew are yet to be found, so they lost the navigator and the bombardier, Second Lieutenant Joseph Henderson and Kenneth Dudley. But yeah, thank you to Scarf for recommending this video and for sharing the story of his grandpa. This is amazing. This is a fantastic story. I had no idea this story happened, and I'm a huge World War II buff, and it goes to show how much stuff you still don't know. There's so much more to learn out there, so I'm definitely going to do more stuff like this. I love this stuff. Don't forget, links in the description, guys. Thank you for watching, and I shall catch you in the next one. Bye bye.